Hello and welcome to episode 234 of the Random Town Podcast. I'm Jason.
And our first take.
That's a lot of things that a lot of people say at once. Palindrome and first take is what I got out of that.
And hopefully our only
Is
one.
it a palindrome? No, it's not a palindrome. Palindrome is you go backwards and forwards, and it's the same. 2, 3, 4.
Palindrome.
Sequential. But anyway,
Sequential.
actually, I've learned. First of all, I'm Jason.
Oh, I don't get an introduction? Man, QC really spoiled me. Alright, I guess I'm Angel.
I guess I'm Kevin. No, I know I'm Kevin.
I would hope you know who you are, yeah. But now, normally I say we have called this episode, but Kevin, I've heard your feedback, and for once it was a conversation Angel and I had that you weren't in, so you did. If you don't like this title, it's okay. We're calling this episode Paper or Plastic. Angel, would you like to explain the title?
Because, when you go to the grocery store, sometimes they ask you in the past, many of you
not that part.
know this, but they used to ask you paper or plastic, if you wanted a paper bag or a plastic bag. Usually a differential in quality. Usually in one, you're sacrificing the durability just because it's better for the earth, but in the other one, it's bad, but it's just more convenient. And in this case, paper would be that nice quality, but it's not as great. Well, I guess it's not as durable, but we're kind of ignoring that part conveniently. The plastic is the part where we know it's just like straight up bad for the environment, and we know we just have to get rid of it. And that's kind of what's getting injected into Paper Mario. They're kind of shoving this thing that is just not good for the franchise. That ultimately, I feel like if there is another one that comes out next, I definitely won't be getting it on launch day.
Which we'll discuss in a moment. But that's why it's called Paper or Plastic, because we are talking about Paper Mario and the Origami King. Or sorry, Paper Mario : the Origami King. No and.
I don't think I've ever been asked that question.
Paper or plastic?
Really?
I definitely have. But LA banned it, but I definitely was before they banned it. Asked that question.
What, plastic or paper?
Paper or plastic? Yeah, that question verbatim.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's very common.
So
also another angle,
I do not get to choose between both.
Yeah, to be fair, I've never been asked that. It's just always been whatever they
really.
Have.
I've been asked that. But another angle.
I guess not in our neighborhoods.
Ralph's Fawns in Montana when I lived there. But here,
when's the last time that you were asked that? Like,
before they banned plastic bags in LA.
Well, how long was that?
I don't know, a year or two ago.
Really? Oh wow, that's super recent.
Actually, you can still get the plastic if you're willing to pay for it.
I still never. Well,
did you ever work in CVS or something like that, Kevin?
No.
Or like,
Kevin,
I worked at a supermarket before.
And you did you do paper or plastic?
No, never.
I guess in most supermarkets, the bags are always just there, and people kind of bag their own stuff. So I guess, or maybe that's more common in our area.
That's what my mom does when she goes to Walmart. Like, she takes her own, thick plastic nylon, reusable bags. But they still use plastic. But it's not like you can ask for paper.
Yeah, no, you definitely can over here. Come west sometime and try it. But go back in time 2 years and then come west. So, but yeah, that's kind of why we're calling it paper or plastic, because we are going to talk about Paper Mario. And another angle of the plastic thing is plastic can mean fake, and it kind of feels like the game wants to move on from being an RPG, but still has the RPG battlefield. Like, it's kind of faking its way into being an RPG. So that's another potential angle of the title.
Press it more, just to let it go completely, and it'll be a much better game.
Yeah, maybe, probably. I agree.
I think you just have to get to Paper Mario at that point, but yeah.
Exactly. But we will get to that, because that's... Oh, you have heard the phrase.
No, but Fry's Electronics, the Fry's Electronics that I worked at did use paper bags. They didn't use plastic bags.
What?
Well, paper is now what's legally... You're allowed to do paper still, but you can't do plastic. And paper costs like 10 cents per bag or something.
Wait, so paper... You actually have to spend money for paper?
I believe in an effort to
nowadays it's like if you want a bag, you have to pay for it, and if you
and that's LA wide.
Yeah. So I know that rule, but the fact the more environmentally conscious one is going to cost you, shouldn't it be the other way where the plastic?
Well, no, because they outright banned plastic. You can't have plastic bags anymore as grocery store in LA County.
What? But Walmart still uses it.
Do they? Regular, cheap plastic?
The Walmart across my street still uses it.
Maybe it's not really county-wide. It's definitely the South Bay. Like, it's definitely
I was about to ask, because I went to the comic book store, and they still give me plastic bags as usual, so I guess it's not just Super Market?
I don't know, guys. I just did research for Nintendo topics. I don't know what's going on with Supermarket.
No, I mean, we're not saying you're wrong. It's
I know.
I'm just kind of surprised that. I mean, I know I heard that, so I know that's like definitely a thing. But I guess I'm just surprised that how not enforced it's being.
I guarantee you there are stipulations that allow it to, allow people to find loopholes.
I guess if they're not ordering over a certain amount of bags, I guess that makes sense. Because, I mean, obviously the comic book store is going to have much less traffic than, like, a supermarket like Ralph's or your Lucky's and Keg and Bottles and whatnot.
Single-use plastic carry-out bags at stores in the county's unincorporated areas and some select cities. There you go.
Well, in case you're still listening, this is not Quarantine Chronicles. You're actually listening to random.
We will talk about Nintendo because not only do we have Paper Mario, but we also are going to be revisiting another kind of divisive game, Pokken. Remember Pokken Tournament? It too kind of had mixed reactions, but Nintendo's going a fresh push this weekend. While we're talking about plastic bags, people are playing Pokken for free in a trial period for Switch Online for subscribers. So we're going to be revisiting that game.
Charge you.
Yeah, exactly. It's an LA County ordinance that's only applied in select cities. But so we're going to be talking about the DX edition on Switch and its mechanics. And really, Pokken's just kind of one of those. I feel like it's one of those many game events that's been happening all summer long. So we're going to be talking about those and how like the idea of maybe games having a shelf life is kind of passé now, maybe borderline dead. Like games don't seem to like be one and done, they live on. So talk about that. Plus, of course, we've got news, both official from Nintendo Direct Mini Partner Showcase and unofficial from the so-called Nintendo Gigaleak. And, did I mention that we're also going to be doing impressions of reverse horror game Carrion? Kevin has that for us, too, if I'm not mistaken. So, per usual, we have timestamps for all those topics and then some, but not plastic bags, at ramnintendo.com in the blog post for this episode, or if you're on our YouTube channel at ramnintendo.com, they're right under the video. So, we already sort of tipped our hand about what we're going to say about Paper Mario. Let's just start there. Angel, you and I have been playing it. It is paper, not plastic, but maybe it's plastic-esque in a metaphorical sense. How are you liking it? What do you think about it? Let's dive in.
I mean, let's just start with the good, because there is a lot of good.
There's a lot of good.
I mean, I feel like the last three Paper Marios, like, writing-wise, except Sticker Star, I still really enjoyed. It just definitely felt like drier than the other ones, just coming off of Thousand Year Door. I mean, that's probably what hurt it the most. But, well, I mean, I didn't play Super Paper Mario, but I'm sure the
writing is your loss, man. That's a good game.
That's a good game.
No, I know. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't play it. I think I just didn't. I think I blame Brawl. Like, Brawl kind of just consumed all.
Well, that happens with every Smash release, where you just like the rest of the world. Exactly. Sakurai releases his masterpiece, and you forget about every other game for about 18 months, and then they just carry on like they never existed.
But, like, a pleasant expectation about this game is that you go in expecting to be entertained in the writing and the characters and just the animations and the visuals, and you definitely get that. Like, it still very much feels like the Paper Mario you wish it was visually. Maybe less so with character variety, but, you know, like,
that's not fully their fault.
No, I know. I'm still not gonna not complain about it.
I know. That's a weird Nintendo. Mm-hmm. For those who don't know, Nintendo, they're making a stink about it, the developers, but a stink's a strong word, but they are pointing out Nintendo's banning them from making custom Toad characters. They can only use if Toads are non-playable characters, like the NPC Toads you collect through the game. The reason they all have quippy one-liners now in the last few Paper Marios is because from Sticker Star on, Nintendo told the developers at Intelligent Systems, you cannot change the design of non-playable Toads. Like, generic Toads have to look the same. They all have to be guys. They all have to, they be different colors. No accessories, no hair, no whatever.
No old Toad,
no Toadsworth, no Captain Toad, no Toadette, no... I could just start saying random Toad names and they'd sound probably plausible. Like, no Toad's Bottom Jr., no Toadican. But yeah, it's weird.
But
so
yeah.
Yes, to your point.
But I mean, So even if the problem has a valid excuse, I mean, it is a valid excuse. It's still a problem because it does get, I don't know, just kind of a little bit I don't want to say the word boring because it's not necessarily the word I'm looking for, but it gets slowly. It starts losing its magic, like after you see like literally like the 100th Toad. Like, you're just kind of like, I kind of want to see a new character. Even though, like, the writing is always entertaining and, like, it always sometimes brings a smile to my face. Like just seeing like very little character variety is just kind of like.
I think the one thing they did with this one that sort of counters what you're saying slightly, although it's still true, is I get the impression every single Toad you find and unfold so they can run away. I think those are all real origami folding patterns, because Nintendo put out that tweet the other day where they showed how they fold different Toads and they showed what they look like where they are in the game. And they're not outright saying it, but they're certainly implying that like everything folded in the game can be folded in real life in the same way, which is kind of crazy because the Toads take on butterfly looks and grasshopper looks and all these different origami
you say things. That, but then at first that could be neat, but then when you see like the 8th butterfly or like the 8th grasshopper or like, you start seeing the same origami patterns. It's like, I guess I've seen every way that a Toad is going to be hidden. How they're going to be hidden in this area. Right. No, that's
fair. I mean, but it is like props them for circumventing the ban by doing that. I thought that's clever.
That's kind of why like it's an interesting mechanic having to find Toads. You also have to do that in Paper Jam, surprisingly. But it was more as like a mini game where you had to like go and corral Toads. You kind of did it all at once instead of it being spread out throughout an entire like area of your exploration. But I don't know. I think I preferred more the surprise of discoverability from the other Paper Mario games, where you don't really know what you have to be looking for or what you can find. You just find like, oh, there's a secret here, or like you like whack around and then there's like a panel that's loose. Everything here is very direct, and I mean, even just by pressing the map, it tells you like, oh, you have this percentage of Toads found. Like, it tells you what you're looking for, essentially. I mean, on one hand, that's kind of nice. It tells you how close you are to finding everything. But then on the other hand, like, there's no sense of discovery. It's just like a to-do list. It feels like I'm cleaning a room more than exploring a world. Which I guess is kind of how I felt about, like, the majority of the moon pieces in Odyssey. Like, yeah, like there were some that were very cleverly hidden that I had like really fun gathering, but then literally everything else was just like a chore to get, because a lot of them were very inspired. You just run into them, like you're not even trying to find them and you just get so many. Like I was telling Jason, like it literally felt like they had, like, I was going to use Picnic Plains or whatever it's called. Yeah, it's a decently sized area, but that area has a ton of Toads, and a few of them are like hidden in pretty cool spots where you're like, oh, I wonder what this does. Like, oh, that's cool. It's like a little like Mario flagpole or whatever. Or like you're curious about a hole and then you go exploring more and then you find the Toad. But then there are so many Toads that you just find in there that it just felt like they were told, like, instead of, all right, think of how you can think of clever places you can hide Toads in. And then they just go out and hide some Toads here and there. And then they're like, all right, cool. I think I like expelled my creativity. We're done. And instead it feels more like they're like, all right, here are like 80 Toads. I don't care how you do it, but they all have to be in here. So, some of them will be good. A lot of them will be like, obviously simple and just kind of a chore to get through.
I do think, to your point though, they have that same problem. It's not just the Toads. It's kind of a design choice they made in general. Because the same way that it's like, oh, here's a Toad, there's a Toad type thing. Like, I feel like the way that they just shove battles at you. Like, when I was looking for the Toads in Picnic Plains, it was like, I fought a Goomba, I found a Toad, immediately there's another Goomba, I beat that Goomba, a third one came out of a bush or a tree or something as I was on the way to the second Toad, which was right next to the first Toad, and it's just like, I feel like I made basically no progress in the gap of, like, 2 bushes, because there's, like, Toad, Goomba, Toad, Goomba, Toad, Goomba, and that, I don't know, it just kind of...
Yeah, honestly, I mean? like battles, I mean, I guess, might as well get into battles, so...
Yeah, let's talk about battles.
So battles, I mean, were always an important part of Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, Paper Mario 1, and even Super Paper Mario. Even if you weren't going into RPG-style battles, you still gained experience. Like, every enemy you killed, like, always accounted for something. There was some sort of progress, no matter what. Even if it was coins or anything, like, you got experience points. You're building towards something. But in this one, you always get coins or confetti. And
usually both.
That'd be great. Yeah, usually both. But you need confetti to cover up patches all over the world, and sometimes to progress the story. Very rarely do you have to, though. And the problem is that when you do a battle, that gives you a ton of confetti, which is great, but the world itself also gives you a ton of confetti. Like, it feels like you're almost never running out of confetti, and the world also gives you a ton of coins as well. So
Essentially, every time you use confetti, you're rewarded with coins.
Yeah, so like
Just
you basically have no reason. And the battles, like I said, like they don't give you any experience points whatsoever. So they don't really feel like you just don't want to do them. Even in Paper Mario 1 and 2 or Thousand Year Door, even when I don't want to fight because I just want to like oh, I'm low on health. I mean, at least like that, it's like all right, that's actually serving as a mechanic to, add tension because you don't want to die. I mean, the battles are super easy over on Paper Mario just because the hardest part is the puzzle mechanic in the beginning. And most of the time, you could just kill all the enemies in one hit.
And that's another thing. No, that's another thing. Hang on, before you anyway that. Like, it is interesting that the sliding puzzle of lining up the enemies either in a ring or vertically, which I didn't know it could do both until I played it, which was kind of a nice surprise. But even that, like, that's the brunt of the actual strategy in the battle system. Like, once you do that, once you figure it out under a time limit, I need to spin this way and I need to, like, slide that way, that's it. Like, the rest is just ultimately the same kind of moves over. You're just constantly jumping or constantly hitting with a hammer, and there's different moves and whatnot, but basically, like, at that point, what dictates how well the battle's going to go is if you line them up correctly. So if you don't line them up correctly, you're not getting max damage. If you don't line them up correctly, you're not... you can have a powerful item, but that's not necessarily going to do it, because ultimately what you need to do is the sliding puzzle. Yeah, which is interesting, because that leans more on the puzzle side of it. Like, I feel like Paper Mario is becoming a game about exploration and puzzles. And the puzzle mechanic's there, but then they kind of guise it with a battle system after. Like, I don't mind the sliding puzzle part, but when I get to the battle, I'm like, well, what am I doing now? I already completed the puzzle. I'm just hitting it a bunch of times.
Especially if you, like, correctly aligned everyone, you're going to kill everyone in one hit. So at that point, it literally just feels like a waste of time.
Yeah, and I kind of, like, or go ahead. What are you going to say?
No, and it doesn't help that, like, I mean, you get, like, spiky shoes. You could buy different types, like, of augmentations, but... it doesn't change how you attack. Like, the fact that you could literally... they give you enough attacks to take out everybody. Like, literally sometimes, like, up to, like, 8 enemies at once. Or 12 enemies at once. Like, literally in one go, you get to kill all of them. Where in the other Paper Mario, like, you had to get the multi-bounce attack. And that had different mechanics where you had to, like, time the bounces a lot more strictly because you're hitting more than one opponent. But also did less damage. Pretty much there's always a back and forth. Like, it's never, like... just do the puzzle, bam, you're done. And, I mean, at least in the other Paper Marios, at least you got experience. Even if you didn't want to fight, at least you always got experience. Well, and in this one, you don't.
That's kind of an interesting thing. Is like, to be fair here, I do sort of see the loop they're trying to go for, and it does work on some level. Like, in concept, the coins are now your experience points, and you use those coins to upgrade, quote-unquote, your abilities by going to buy new items or getting new moves
which are temporary.
Whatever through... Yeah, which are temporary, but you still, like, you spend coins
not as
to
bad
go
as
buy
stickers,
things.
but still.
Yeah, and that was a whole nother league. But as you go through the game, like, enemies get tougher. The bosses in particular are actually pretty rewarding to fight, and those are fun. But, like, as you go through it, you're grinding for coins along the way, and you keep facing harder and harder enemies, and the coins you earn need to be spent on more and more expensive items. That's, in concept, what they're doing, which is ultimately an experience point system under a different name.
It is a loop,
but the problem is, like you were saying, there are coins everywhere in the world. You get them for laying confetti down on the ground. You get them if you bonk something. You get them randomly in this situation or that situation or from a block. And
from every spot you throw confetti at, every patch always gives you coins. They literally both, like, help each other.
And what they could have done, and what they could have done, they could have helped each other. They could have easily said, okay, fine, you earn confetti in battles, and you use that confetti in the world to translate it into coins to buy new items. And then the battles would have to be more critical, because you need the confetti to turn around and get coins with.
I think that'd be great. That would give me a reason to, like, want to do battles. It's really all it took. Or, conversely, just eliminate the whole RPG battle system. Like, just make all the battles...
Yeah. Real-time bopping.
Well, real-time bonkers, or just make them staged and not as frequent. Kind of like when you find, like, a Goomba from Saving a Toad, like all scripted. At least that way they don't come out as often, and you're not just... because they do get tired pretty quickly. Like, I mean, at first I was like, oh man, I didn't get to do an RPG battle versus this giant paper-mache Goomba. But then after seeing how battles were, I'm all like, you know what? I'm okay with this real-time bonk it a few times.
And that's what's interesting is, like, the real-time giant paper-mache enemies, like, I actually think those are kind of cool and feel more natural in the exploration gameplay than the disruption of going into a battle where you get things that you get in the world anyway is. Like, it's just missing the give-and-take loop, I guess. Like,
there's two different ideas. Like, honestly, I would have really liked this game if they had just fully committed to the exploration part and just
I agree.
Got rid of the battle part, because it's already like it's great. Like, it's fun, and like I even love like the way the boss battles have like that puzzle element implemented. It's very different than what it is when you're fighting normal enemies. It's like it's its own thing, which I don't know. I thought those were really cool and fun. Like, they definitely surprised me, but unfortunately, the bulk of them are these not as interesting.
Yeah, the more literal grinding. But the thing that's crazy is I do like, if they took out the battles and everything else, like I even like the confetti system over the paint system from Color Splash. Arguably, this one's way simpler. Like, Color Splash are like multiple colors and they work to power your moves in battle, and there's this whole elaborate thing. But I do kind of like that. Like, here it's just you use it to fill in the world. It's like this simple kind of breezy thing you do to get stuff as you go. It's very much like the 1,000-fold arm mechanic, which like really like. Is there any real gameplay need to have you suddenly use motion controls in only preset spots, like aimlessly swing your arms to find a paper seam to tear that only appears if you have to hover directly over it? There is not a need for that, but fun in kind of like a goofy way, and that's how I feel like confetti works. And I feel like if they did those, but maybe real time, like just you bop an enemy like the paper mache guys, and then they kept the boss battles or like trigger events like you're saying, I think that would be kind of the balance. And I think Nintendo even figured out as they were making the game, this might be a little tedious, because they start like if you look at how like the battle system evolves, they let you basically automate them at some point. You pay for Toads to come cheer you on. You pay for Toads to essentially tell you the alignment in battle, and then you just kind of like let it run its course. So why not just go one step further and either have like a full narrative mode where they don't even have to like, we don't even have to do battles at all, or just take battles out? Because like, if this, to your point, Angel, if this was a full-on adventure game, I feel like it'd be so perfect. Like, it would be kind of breezy, but it's like kind of watching a cartoon at that point. It's really, the game really puts on a show. Like, the humor is really good, the meta moments and references are great, and they're deep cuts. Like, I saw a Game Explain video where someone found that the Shogun Studio music is Maple Speedway from Mario Kart Wii. That music slowed down. Like, that's a very obscure reference to spend time to put into your Paper Mario game. But, like, they have all sorts of references, big and small, like that. They have those musical numbers segments with actual, like, songs and lyrics and stuff, which is pretty great. Like, it's all really well done. The music in general is, like, just really good. And I think, like, if they just focused on that, even if it's an easier game as a result, or it's a little less, you know, maybe they do a bit better job of hiding the Toads or something, I feel like that alone would be like, I'm playing kind of an interactive Mario story. I would maybe take that over them like faking a RPG when it isn't really an RPG, you know?
Yeah. At the end of the day, I would say, even if I do like, I guess, this style of game overall, ignoring the battle, like, one of my fondest memories of like Thousand Year Door and the first Paper Mario are the battles. So it is kind of a shame that we just kind of moved away from that.
But the thing is, like, if Nintendo's going to move away from it, just move away from it. I mean, like, Super Paper Mario, as I looked this up, it's among the franchises.
They just made the transition really awkward and...
Yeah, and, like, they have data showing them this is the right call for the franchise from their perspective. Because Super Paper Mario is the franchise's bestseller, as is, at least in Japan. And lifetime sales of Sticker Star are actually the highest in Japan. Let me rephrase. Paper Mario is one of the best sellers. Super Paper Mario is one of the best sellers. I forgot a word. And then Sticker Star is the best seller. And then the UK Origami King's already the series' fastest seller. So, like, there's nothing holding that. Like, people are saying, I want RPGs. But, like, their data is showing them just go full adventure game. So, like, drop the pretense at this point. If you're going to do it, just do it. Or at least don't give me coins and confetti every single battle. Give me one that leads to the other and make it like a loop. But if you do want, Angel, like actual old school Paper Mario RPG gameplay, there are alternatives. There's I haven't played it myself, but I've heard very good things about a Switch indie game called Bug Fables that seems to perfectly match the gameplay and has gotten pretty good reviews. It's not against Paper Mario, but there is an option out there. So if Nintendo's insisting on taking Paper Mario in this direction, you know, there is things you can do. But like right now, like as a person who wants the other gameplay, but like right now, like ultimately what's keeping me going with this game is that it just really puts on a good show, like a really great show. And the problem is the battles are sort of like commercial breaks where they're like disruptive and detracting from the experience, and not really like, you don't really want that in your show. But I am into the main stuff enough that I think I'd probably go power through the battles. Like I might actually get far in this one. I do really like the writing. I do really like the world.
I was planning on throwing down the gauntlet against you and tell you try to beat this game before the end of the year, but I feel like I'd rather make you try to beat something that feels more
cohesive,
worth your time.
Well, see, that's the thing is, but that's
the thing is not, but something that I would be like, oh man, I really want Jason to beat this game because this game is so awesome that I know he would like it. This one feels like, yeah, I'm down to beat it. I'm sure it'll be interesting, but I also don't mind. Like, I could have waited. I could take my time with it. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. I still think, like, for me, I still think I'm going to keep playing it. Because, like, I mean, the battles, they are a bit tedious. The loop is kind of weird. But, like, it's not like the game is, like, you can kind of go on autopilot because the battles are so straightforward. Like, once you do the puzzle, and I don't mind the puzzle part, like the little spinner, it's just kind of like hammering A at the right time. So, like, I don't, like, if I had to pick a game where you had to grind, this is, like, the simplest grind. So I don't mind doing that if that's what it takes to get through, like, the really clever writing. And I think there's, like, 8 musical numbers to see, and I'm only a few in. So, like, I kind of want to get the full breadth of it because this is the closest Nintendo's going to make to, like, a comedy video game. So, like, I am very much on board with seeing where that goes. I don't know if I'll necessarily go all the way, especially if you're not throwing a gauntlet to force me. But I'm definitely, like, not planning to give up on it or anything. It's still, I would say, more enjoyable than not. It's more just, like, these nitpicks about their design choices are just kind of these glaring things where it's just like, as I'm playing this, I know they could have done this differently, but it's not stopping me yet, at least. It sounds like it's stopping you a bit more, but it's not stopping me yet.
I mean, the only reason I feel it's affecting me a little more is because I am currently playing other games simultaneously.
Right.
So it does make me kind of feel like, I might as well just play Death Stranding more, or whatever else I'm playing on my computer. Or Dragon Quest XI. Like, there are things I am currently working on. So
yeah, I got nothing. I'm on a Nintendo system. There's not a single game coming out the rest of the year as far as I'm aware from Nintendo. So Paper Mario it is. Paper Mario for days, weeks, months, years.
There are more games coming out. It's just nothing Nintendo related as far as we know.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, nothing from Nintendo. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff on the
Fight Crab looks cool, and that's coming out.
Yeah, September 15th, Fight Crab. Yeah.
Fight Crab. Although I might get it on Steam if it is cross-platform with Switch. Or maybe both. I don't know.
But yeah, it's and yeah, there's a huge amount of stuff on the indie scene. I mean, like, Kevin, you've been playing. I think it did come out this week or last week, Carrion.
I'm actually not too sure. I believe
it's actually
this week.
Carrion.
Is it?
Carrion.
Carrion.
Nah,
I mean that's how you would say it in Spanish.
But why would you say it? Is it Spanish? Is the word Spanish?
I don't think so. I think
no.
The developers are.
I'm pretty sure it's Carrion. Oh. But I don't know.
Yeah, Carrion.
So what I
I'm not going to call it Carrion.
That is Carrion, how I pronounced it initially, though. Carrion.
Yeah. Well, let's just call it the reverse horror game, because that's essentially what it is, right? Like, you're the monster instead of the people running.
Yeah, exactly. So just a little disclaimer about this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just a little disclaimer. I didn't play this on the Switch. I played it on the PC and with an Xbox controller. But listen, I'm sure that the Switch version is just as polished. It's not like I'm playing The Witcher 3 on the PC and passing it off as a Switch experience. I'm sure the experiences are exactly the same.
Not only that, but like Devolver Digital's pretty good about making all their experiences, on par with one another. So yeah, I think you're fine.
Yeah. So these are just impressions of the game, not of how it performs. Which, like I said, I'm sure it's going to be just fine.
Yeah, it's a pixel art game. Can't be that
it's a pixel art game. Yeah. So I played about an hour and a half last night because I learned that the game was on Game Pass. Okay, hold on. All right, so
those are some Jason level numbers right there.
Yeah, so apparently about an hour and a half. That's about like 25% of the game, from what I'm hearing. I'm hearing it's a short game, so you could possibly beat it like in an evening. But from what I played, I really enjoyed it, with the exception of one very, very annoying issue. So you play as some alien monster that looks like a large mass of like bloody meat with teeth. And this comparison has been made plenty of times, but you're essentially playing the monster from John Carpenter's The Thing. I don't know if either of you... I think Angel's seen it. What about you?
I've seen it. Yeah, I know The Thing. Yep.
Yeah. So,
with that one actor... Like, don't tell me his name. I forgot his name.
We can't tell you.
Another movie season?
We're not allowed to tell you. You just said.
They Live?
No.
Wait, did you see, like, The remake or the original, Angel?
The remake by the dude that did Halloween, John Carpenter.
Oh, we're talking about the original, I think.
No, so that technically is a remake.
The 82 one's a remake? Or 83 or whatever?
Yep, that is a remake.
I didn't know that. Well, that one...
Yeah, the original
is
like black and white.
If you need it. If you need the actor's name, I could tell you. Kurt Russell.
Give me.
Or
Kurt
are you thinking
Russell.
of Wilford Brimley?
No, it was Kurt Russell. That's my homie.
Kurt
Okay.
Russell's
Go
your
way
homie?
back.
You guys know each other?
Interesting.
Friend of the family.
No, he's
All right,
not.
okay.
Okay, anyway.
Interesting. Anyways, yeah. So you're essentially playing the monster from the thing, and man, this thing. Damn it! I didn't want that. That wasn't a pun. That wasn't a pun.
That was beautiful. You've grown so much since you joined this podcast.
This alien. Well, I'll use this alien instead. It looks awesome. Yeah, creature, I guess. But I'm pretty sure it's an alien. It looks awesome. The game, like Angel mentioned, does utilize a pixel art aesthetic, which I think I've been on the podcast before, and I've gone on record of saying is I'm really bored of the pixel art aesthetic.
I think we all said it.
Yeah. But this being the reverse horror game that it is, and that it's been pitched as, it feels fresh in a way, because like I'm not playing some little soldier or anything. You're going around multiple areas that range from like generic labs to mine shafts, that sort of thing. And along the way, you are feeding on scientists and various different types of security guards that have weapons and flamethrowers and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And you're solving like very, very easy puzzles. To what I assume you're doing is trying to escape the laboratory that you've been stuck in. You as the alien. Strangely enough, it plays sort of like a twin-stick shooter, which I wasn't expecting.
I would not have guessed that from the footage.
Yeah, because essentially you're moving with the left stick, but because you have so many tendrils and like you're this sticky mass of thing, you can basically move anywhere on the screen. So like if you just push up, it's like you're floating in the air, but you are very clearly shooting out tendrils that are touching like the ceiling. So, yeah, there's no jump button or anything like that. You can just freely move around the entire screen. And this is I don't know how you would call this, like you move from one screen to another one. It's not necessarily a side scroller.
It's like a room-based thing, like Castlevania or Metroid.
Yeah, sure, and
like
I've heard that
Binding of Isaac or something.
Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, yeah, you can move anywhere, but then you aim with the right stick where you want a tendril to like latch onto you. So you're latching onto doors to open them. You're latching onto like switches to open some door in another part of the room. And like you're also latching, usually you're going to be latching onto like screaming scientists that are running for their lives. When it comes to like the security guards, they will shoot you and you will shrink in size, but feeding on humans is what will pretty much replenish your mass and your health. You do occasionally come across power-ups, and like the one that I most recently got made me twice as big, and I already felt like this indestructible force of nature, and I remember seeing me twice as big and going like, holy crap, wait till these poor scientists get a look at me now. The game is honestly like such a power trip. You just feel impossible to kill, and the game is sort of easy in a way where like, yeah, enemies or like the security guards will shoot you down pretty easily, but because of like how fast you are, you can just zip across the room and like lunge at them, and then there's nothing that they can really do to stop you.
Right.
Occasionally,
So is there
go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is the shrinking? Is you shrinking? Is that like your health meter equivalent? And then if you shrink too small, you're stopped at that point. Like how? Is there a way to lose?
Yeah, there is. You can absolutely get killed by the guards by them just shooting at you.
Okay. So you do just shrink into nothing, essentially.
Essentially, yeah. And then there are multiple like cracks in the walls of like this laboratory where you will I forget the exact wording that they use, but you're essentially embedding yourself into the wall, and you're making these pockets of like more fleshy thing. I don't know, alien, I guess, which you can then return to and grow back to like regular mass.
Oh.
And then they also act as save points or checkpoints. And then whenever you do that, you're making little pockets of alien that you can go back to. So then, like, occasionally you will play a flashback in which you are a scientist who I assume is going to like originally find this monster. And you could tell that's a flashback because the screen gets all like dreamy. No, it's more like it has like a watery filter.
Oh, and like
a foggy filter
thing.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, but like I didn't get far enough to confirm that's what's going to happen. I'm just going to assume it is.
Seems like a safe bet.
Yeah. Let me give just a quick shout out to the music and the sound design. The music is great. It's like very orchestral. It does give that like, oh, this is a horror game, and there's like let's say you were one of the security guards and you heard this music. It's like, I'm going to find like these scary creatures that are just gonna nail me. But it's funny how like we've stated, this is a reverse horror game. It's almost like your theme song, and not just and not just.
So it's almost like an empowering, like, I'm in a zone sort of thing versus.
Yeah, absolutely, and like the sounds that you make while traversing and latching onto humans and feasting on them very much enforce the idea that you are this beast that no one is ever going to take down.
Right.
So, like all helping out the power trip idea of this game, where my
gratifying.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. It very much is. My big issue with the game, and will probably accounted for like the 30 minutes of the hour and a half that I spent playing this game last night, is that there is no mini-map or map whatsoever. So there's a lot of points where I was just straight up lost. I had no idea where to go next. There's no like arrow that's going to point you into the direction that you have to go next. And then I didn't know what screen would teleport me to a new area. There's like a lot of little, they're not really portals, but they're just points that will take you from like a mine shaft to like a laboratory. And then stuff like the laboratories, they're so sort of generic. Every screen just eventually blends together, and then you end up going around in circles. It legitimately frustrated me to the point where I stopped playing last night.
Oh, jeez.
But luckily the game is short enough, and like I said, I only played about an hour and a half of it, so I'll probably just end up restarting the game. And now I know that I definitely do have to navigate a bit better than I did, and not just rush through these areas. And I guess what's going to help me is that the game controls well, and the alien is a lot of fun to play with, even in the early stages of the game. So it's not like I'm just going to be treading through this very unpowerful alien. Like, you are just a beast right from the beginning. So I mean, hopefully I'm going to have more fun on the second playthrough. But yeah, that's all I really got to say about Carrion. It's a lot of fun. I'm not sure how much it costs on the eShop. I'm going to assume it's like $20.
Yeah, it's $20. I checked.
Yeah, and if you have Xbox Game Pass, you can play it for $5 essentially a month. So that's fun.
All right. Well, here's a question then. So we talked about two games so far that have some sort of like glaring design choice, weird bad design choice. No map in Carrion, the weird battle loop in Paper Mario,
and the no map in Carrion might just be me being an idiot and like obviously missing where I have to go next.
Sure.
But
it would help. Most Metroidvania game structure like that do have a map.
Yeah, so. Like Castlevania will have will show you what room you're in and stuff like that. So
yeah, so I would say
the alien doesn't know where he is.
If he's an alien, maybe he has sci-fi technology. Oh, that's true. All right, so maybe it's not a design choice.
I mean, in most games that are Metroidvania, usually you get a map of some sort. Like
maybe you will
in story.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll get to it. I will update.
All right, sounds good. But yeah, what I was going to say is, let's say there's
Random Nintendo, if I do come across some map technology,
just blur it out like when we start the episode. Hello and welcome to episode. Just be like, "There's a map." That's all you need to do.
Yeah,
there's a map.
I will do it.
Yes, please. But yeah, so we talked about two games that maybe one maybe has a design choice that's questionable. One certainly does. Angel, as you've been revisiting Pokken Tournament, or as my notes here for some reason wrote Poker Tournament DX, is there any sort of flaw like that? Correct. Does Pokken have that issue? Or is it like a pretty well-rounded thing?
No, it definitely has an issue. And it's kind of unfortunate because it's a game I really, really, really want to love, but I just can't. Which, that always just hurts more when... that's kind of how I feel about ARMS. Like, I love the world. I love everything about it. I just can't get into the gameplay. Like, the gameplay is just...
Have you played the Tekken games?
I have.
Does it control similarly to it?
No, not at all.
Okay.
They're like a different beast. So this game, like most fighting games, have a built-in rock, paper, scissors mechanic that, as you know, it's like basic attacks beat shield. No, shield beats basic attacks beat grabs beat shield. In this game, you have counters beat normal attacks, grabs beat counters, but what is it? I guess shields beat normal attacks. So, you have those three things. And normally, like...
Never like those types of games.
And normally, like, that's okay. Like, even Smash Brothers has that, but it never really feels like it. Like, because usually you're doing a bunch of other things at the same time, and it's... The gameplay loop is just very... It's just designed in a more interesting way, I guess I'll just say it. But this one, I feel is like... It's way... Like, the rock, paper, scissors mechanic is, like, front and center. Like, almost to the point where it literally feels like every time you get near your opponent, it's like you're playing rock, paper, scissors. Like, it doesn't really feel like I'm doing anything strategic. It just feels like, oh, man, are they going to throw out a counter, or are they going to throw out an attack? Like, you're just kind of guessing, and I guess because everything is, like, full-on committal, there aren't any moves that you could just kind of throw out to bait stuff out. It's like, no, if you throw out anything, you're gonna get punished for it, or I guess rewarded for it. But it just makes it feel like completely luck based, and I feel like other fighting games find this nicer balance where it just doesn't feel that way. And it's kind of hard to explain, but essentially, unless like you're playing the game, but it just doesn't make the game feel as rewarding. Like, it makes losing feel not that satisfying, and it makes winning feel not that satisfying. And it doesn't really help that on top of that rock, paper, scissors mechanic, you do have other characters that, I don't know why this game of all games, but it's like a projectile hell with some characters. Like, they could just stay on the other side of the map and literally just like flood the field with projectiles and just kind of live there. So
did they try to address that with the new characters? Because like the Switch one, because we played it on Wii U back in the day and talked about them, but the Switch one, I think has 5 new characters or something like that. Like, do those guys double down on the projectiles, or is it kind of a course correct, would you say?
I guess it's like they're definitely more balanced out, but the problem with the ones that use projectiles is that they're still like really, really good. Like, there's still no reason no one's not going to pick those Pokemon online, which sucks. Like, you're always going to fight Chandelures, you're always going to fight Suicunes, and they're always just going to stay on the other side of the stage and just like spam projectiles at you. And it sucks because, or if you're fighting a Mewtwo, like, you might as well just like give up right then and there. But oh man, but this game, like, I love that it tries to do, it incorporates like 2D and 3D, which is awesome. Like, the game literally starts in a 3D arena-ish mode that's, faster paced than your Tekkens and some other 3D fighters. But then if you do certain attacks, the game will shift into a 2D perspective, which is also really awesome. Like, it's just a really cool idea that I thought, like, at least that part was executed well. It just kind of sucks that the rock, paper, scissors mechanic of it just kind of overtook the fun aspect of it. Like, I just can't get into it. I'm sure maybe I'm missing something, but like,
it's interesting
because even like it even has one of my favorite, like, literally like top 6 favorite Pokemon, like as a playable character, which just makes it hurt even more because it's like they were so close. Even like, and one of the assists is like another one of my tops is like literally like I have a team in Pokemon that's comprised of my all-time favorite Pokemon. It just happened to work out perfectly nice, and I could literally have like a Weavile with a Rotom assist, but it just sucks that I just can't get into the game, and that's a sad story, I guess.
It's strange because like if it's a game that's that simple on surface and that spammable with projectiles, I wonder why Nintendo chose this to be like, yeah, Switch Online subscribers, here you go for a week, like check it out. If it doesn't, hit the mark, so to speak.
Yeah. But,
which honestly is what I find more interesting than Pokken itself. More interesting than like your thoughts on Pokken itself, because I kind of knew where you stood from when we played it on Wii U. Is to me the trial existed, like the entire concept of Nintendo doing this. Like it's one of just like many in-game or like game-specific events that Nintendo's been doing this summer. Events to kind of like drum up activities around the current Switch lineup, which on like some level you can be cynical and say it's because they had no new games to sell. And of course that's part of it. We still don't know what's coming out this year. But I mean, like, not only did they do like the Pokken trial, but then they were confident enough that people are not going to feel how you feel, Angel, that they have a 30% discount on the full game. And the discount runs for a week on the eShop beyond the trial ending. So the trial ends, I think, Monday, so the 4th. The discount runs till the 11th. That's beyond just someone liking the demo and buying it. That's enough time for someone to like play the trial, think they had their fill, have the game lurk in the back of their mind, like debate it, and then finally pull the trigger like 6 days from now, and it's still on sale. So they clearly think there's like an opportunity here. But like more broadly speaking, I guess like it's really just interesting that Nintendo's putting such a huge emphasis on constant in-game events right now. I mean, this weekend we had Pokken, but we also had another Tetris 99 Maximus Cup. Last weekend we had the Mario Tennis Aces North American Open. A few weekends before that we had Mario Kart 8 Open. Next weekend is the ARMS Open. The weekend after that is a Splatfest in Splatoon. They're making like these very, very conscious efforts to turn what would have been like a one and done sort of game, or like, oh, we'll do some DLC for 6 months and call it quits, which is what Pokken basically was initially, into these sort of long-term service games, or into this idea that these games never really die. And, it's not like everyone's going to participate in a Mario Tennis Open or an ARMS Open, or, you, for example, aren't really feeling Pokken. But I feel like it's kind of a smart strategy, because anecdotally, like, I've at least found myself investing in games beyond the old shelf life I would have given them because of this sort of thing. Like, the prime example for me is the Maximus Cup and Tetris 99. I'm sure I've talked about it on the show before, but this latest one through Monday, so tomorrow, by the time this goes live, you can unlock a Paper Mario theme for the game. They've done that a bunch. But I've made it my mission, weirdly, for some reason, to make sure I unlock every single... Mission? My life mission is to unlock every single theme these Maximus Cups offer for as long as they do them. Like, Nintendo announces these things about a week in advance. As soon as I see it, I have a reminder in my phone. I'm there playing it a week later. I'm making it like my thing. It was kind of funny is that, like, I'll only do it when there's a theme involved. They did a couple Maximus Cups early on where they were just for points, like 1,000 gold coins or whatever, and I completely skipped them. But then, like, on the flip side of that, we have someone like you, Angel, who's like, oh, it's a fighting game, I'm going to try that, or it's a competitive thing. Like, you're tuning into those events while I'm tuning into the other ones, but they're balancing them so well that, like, there's sort of constantly stuff going on for both of us. I mean, you, like, the Splatoon Opens I was there for the ride, but you were the one that was like, yeah, guys, we need to take our Wednesday crew and, like, give this a shot. You're pretty gung-ho about it, right? So it just seems, I guess, to my point that, like, there's a situation where Nintendo's kind of catering to so many different games, so many different people at once, that sort of feels like, in general, like, games don't really age anymore, I guess. Like, they're kind of bringing up old... Like, ARMS would have been dead a generation ago by now. Pokken would have been dead a generation ago by now. But they keep kind of, like, rechurning them a little. Like, do you get that impression too, that, like, the idea of, like, games having a shelf life or, like, dying at a certain point, it's kind of, like, done? Like, it seems like lifespans have gotten longer
nowadays. Yeah, a lot of companies just feel like they don't let anything die. I feel like The Last of Us Part 1 just, like, kept getting revived. I feel like it just, like, never really stopped being always sold. Kind of, I mean, and not even like counting like evergreen titles, like I guess like Nintendo calls them like Mario Kart or New Super Mario Brothers.
Right.
Like it just felt like games kept getting released and treated like they just came out. Like, you know, like God of War getting that remaster on PS4, Last of Us getting that remaster, like the Nathan Drake collection, like everything just constantly getting re-released and like reshelved and repackaged. And it's interesting because these were also games that didn't have any DLC or if they did, like it was just like one time, but it was pretty much like a self-contained game, but it just became, I guess the game became a service in of itself. I don't know. It's just kind of
it's interesting because like if you look back at like think about like when we were younger, like the industry was so obsessed with the idea of like the next big game, like you're kind of saying, like if you wanted older titles back in the day, really your only option was on your own accord to go dig them out at a GameStop and buy them used, or maybe find them in a bargain bin or a Black Friday deal at Best Buy or Circuit City. Like I remember in high school, I used to almost every single weekend end up in one of those big box electronics stores, and I'd just be browsing the games because like I was so like, oh, I need to get the first party games as soon as they come out. I have every Nintendo game as soon as it comes out. There are a ton of third party ones that I missed out on, so I'd like kind of make it a mission to like see if there's any good ones on sale, and it'd be like a weekly little journey for me. Like I don't know if you guys did something similar, but for a good chunk of high school, I was doing that pretty often.
I mean, I guess when I got my PS3 and PS4, I definitely like taking trips to GameStop or Best Buy just to look at old games, just to see like, especially because by then there were so many games that were way cheaper, but that's also kind of a little different.
Yeah, well, I think what's telling there is you're right, they were cheaper, and they were cheaper because the publishers basically put them out there and were just like, we're done with this, one and done, it's out. We
like
did
even new, they were like
rush.
$20 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
and you know who made it $20? Like the publishers didn't really pay attention to it at that point. It was basically like the retailers coming in and saying like, look at these $10 doorbusters, or come check out the bargain bin or whatever. It wasn't like Sony or Nintendo would stick, you know, the GameCube port of Crazy Taxi in a commercial for GameCube 2 years after the GameCube and the game came out. It was Best Buy or Circuit City putting in their Christmas flyer, we got it for $10, and that was kind of how these games lived on beyond that initial push. But I feel like now it seems like, you know, what we're seeing with Nintendo and what others doing, the platform holders are essentially doing what the box stores used to do, like in many different ways. But you know, you have games as services, you have services with games, you have paid DLC, you have free updates. A game is like one and done is not like a thing anymore with gaming, I feel like. Even if you look at games that still, as you point out, Angel, don't have DLC, or, you know, just are remastered on PS4, you don't even need the remaster. Think of services like PlayStation Plus or Xbox Live Gold or even Stadia. They're actively highlighting all these older games that have been around for years as these things you've now got to try through the service. They're still worth your time all these years later. I guess Nintendo kind of does it too with like the Switch Online lineup, but
yeah, like I do appreciate that, but I mean, I'm not even going to get into that like other side of the conversation, but you know, just like sell me the games I want individually, but it is cool that they also have that alternative where instead of just buying them one by one, you do have all of them as, you know, this service where you can just try them and sample them out. Yeah. Although it would be nice if, like, you know, if there was one that you liked a little more, you could pay for it, so you could play it offline, but I guess that's asking for too much.
But yeah, it is just interesting. But to kind of that point, or even to, I guess, Kevin, you were talking about game... Yeah, seriously. But even Kevin, you were talking about like Game Pass a little bit ago, and that's how you're playing Carrion. Like, it's interesting to kind of go back to the question of, I guess, like why games are timeless now. Whatever it is, what did I call it? Did I call it Carrion?
Carrion. Yeah,
I meant Carrion. Yeah, you know, like what you have on an airplane, you have a Carrion. But I think like what's interesting is this kind of timelessness is probably stemming from the fact that like the industry's too big for one thing now. Like there's too many. The industry's too diverse now. I saw some NPD stat the other week that 3 out of every 4 Americans play video games now in some capacity. That's 244 million people. And they're all going to consume games differently, obviously. It's not like a one-size-fits-all approach, which of course means, I guess by default, games are going to have different ways to be sold, different shelf lives. Like, not everyone's up on every game at the same time or accessing them the same way. So as a result, like, you know, games, they either need to make a bigger splash or a prolonged splash for the publisher to now get what they consider the most bang for their buck. So, like, you can make a bigger splash if you're, you know, going to be a huge game as service and you constantly are in the news. You can make a prolonged splash if you're kind of a one and done, but then you get a remaster, but then you're on PlayStation Plus, but then you're included in Game Pass, but then you're doing this, but then you're doing that. So it's just kind of interesting because you could see it, like, I know I'm going on a rant here, like we're going way down this rabbit hole, sorry guys, but you could kind of see it already, like in games that used to be so the old strategy are now so not. I think the most direct example is last week was the Xbox Game Showcase, right? And the Halo studio 343, is that the number they use? 343?
Yeah, 343.
Yeah, they were saying that, like, you know, every Halo's been a direct sequel to the last Halo. It was a self-contained game, maybe some DLC, that was that. They're saying that the next Halo Infinite is going to be the base for the next 10 years of stories, gameplay, mechanics, what have you. They're basically destinying it. And I think that right there hammers home the point, because like Halo has traditionally been a game of finite releases, is one and done, but now literally in its title, it's infinite. It's its own base, it's its own platform, and they're already announcing things like on Friday. They said, "Oh yeah, it's got free to play multiplayer." It's like a game that had a huge splash and was one of the biggest franchises in like the mid 2000s. Now, if it wants to have that big splash and be one of those franchises, you got to go this new route. Or like Call of Duty, like they have like a free-to-play one, a premium one, a mobile one, and they all live concurrently with one another and target different demos. And of course, there's some overlap. But like the idea of like Call of Duty just being, oh yeah, there's a yearly Call of Duty game and that's it. And that game lasts for a little while and then you move on to the next one. That's kind of gone. Like games don't have this like defined time span anymore. It's weird. Maybe not weird, but it's different. And it doesn't even have to be like drastic either. I mean, I feel like one kind of weird one is like look at something small like the number of playable characters in Mario Kart Tour or Dr. Mario World compared to like the core releases back in the day. Like the only reason I think we now have absurd characters,
I'd rather not think about those games.
Yeah, but honestly, like the only reason we have absurd characters like Dr. Goomba Tower is because they need to keep iterating on the game. They need to keep people playing, and they need to keep adding more things so people keep checking it out. Thus, we get Dr. Goomba Tower. Although I know, Angel, you have some strong feelings about Dr. Goomba Tower.
I mean, it's just lazy. I mean, well, I don't know. I mean, what was it called? Was it called Dr. Goomba, or was it called Dr. Goomba Tower?
It's Dr. Goomba Tower. That's where the laziness comes in, I think. If it was Dr. Goomba, but his trench coat was open, that'd be one. So for those who haven't seen Dr. Goomba Tower,
I mean, they
paint a picture of what he looks like.
Yeah, well, not only that, but I mean, they decided to give these characters PhDs. So, like, which obviously, like, I feel that allows me to question, like, why? Like, yeah, it's fine.
The medical system.
There could be a Dr. Goomba, sure. But why is Dr. Goomba Tower like a different character? I mean, also, I think the one that bothers me even more, honestly, is just the fact that you have a Dr. Fire Peach. It's like, how is she different from normal Peach? Or is she treated like, is she like an actual different person? Did she have to like get her license again while she had her fire ability? Because I guess they're like, oh, sorry, we don't recognize you. You must be a brand new doctor. Like, I don't know. I just don't know.
But like
you're thinking a little too deep into it.
I will give him credit about Dr. Goomba Tower though, because like we had a whole text chain about this the other day. But Dr. Goomba, the concept for those who haven't seen him, first of all, imagine if you don't play Dr. Mario World and you get that email from Nintendo the other day where it's like, check out these new characters, and it's Dr. Fire Peach, Dr. Goomba Tower, and Dr. Baby Wario. Like if I wasn't that close to the ground with like Nintendo stuff, I'd be like, wait. What? Like, what alternate reality is this? But the problem with Dr. Goomba Tower, for those who haven't seen him, it's the Goomba Tower from Mario Odyssey and other Mario games. And it's three of them in a trench coat. You know, that old trope of three in a trench coat. It's a baby it's kids pretending to be adult. It's Vincent Adultman in BoJack. But the thing is, usually they don't call themselves Dr. Three Kids in a Trench Coat. They call themselves Dr. whatever, Adult Man. So to have it literally be Dr. Goomba Tower and have the trench coat open to show it's three of them, it kind of doesn't work. As Angel was saying, it doesn't work as a gag, and as I was thinking, it doesn't work in any sense of reality within that world.
If they wanted to be, I think, get like a sensible chuckle out of me, they would have had to like put the lab coat on top of the three Goombas to make it seem like there's just one Goomba, and just call it Dr. Goomba, but clearly it's like more than one Goomba, or something else like that.
And they could, get
creative
honestly,
with it. Like, show that the developer's actually having fun with it instead of what seems like they're being forced to do this against their will or something.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, to be fair to poor Dr. Mario World, there is some. Not all the characters are absurd. There are some cool ones. One that I thought was kind of cool is very bare bones and simple, but the franchise turns 30, so for the anniversary, they're doing an 8-bit Dr. Mario. And unlike these other ones, they have to like use a gacha system to get. If you log into the game anytime before the end of this month, you just get 8-bit Dr. Mario. And, you know, it again goes back to this idea that Nintendo's doing all these different events for different games at once. I mean, we just had Pokemon Go Fest last weekend as well, and there's, like, Mario Kart Tour has regular tours that does. But what's nice with this one is it's actually, like, free stuff, and it's doing it to kind of drum up a new player base and get new players involved for the 1-year anniversary. But nonetheless, like, 8-bit Dr. Mario, that one I can accept more than Dr. Fire Peach, I guess.
Yeah. At least maybe a different model or something, but it is wild.
Yeah, and you know, Nintendo brought on themselves because they did Rose Gold Peach and Mario Kart. What was it, Wii? And that was a slippery 8. It was an 8.
It was an 8.
Oh, okay. Well, that was.
I think that's where they were trying to test the waters, and everybody accepted it, and they're like, "All right, we got them."
Hook, line, and sinker. But yeah, I think that was the slippery slope there. Once they did that, then people didn't mind. Well, really, if you want to go back in Nintendo history, the slippery slope, I take it back. The slippery slope was putting the babies and the adults in the same game at the same time. Not explaining how there's a baby Mario and a regular Mario, and they can share a cart in Double Dash. That was probably the root of it. Because once they realized that people don't care if you repeat characters in different ways, that's when the floodgates could slow. You know, there was a trickle at first, but that's when they could really.
When did people not care? I mean, I guess because the game sold so well, they decided that that's what the message was.
I feel like
people must love these games because of the redundant characters, not because of the awesome tracks and gameplay.
You know who we're talking about right now, right? We're talking about Nintendo. That is 100,000% their logic.
The same people that put Chibi Robo in that same stranglehold they did Fire Emblem, but actually made it make sense for Fire Emblem.
You're never going to get over that, huh?
Nope.
We need to keep tally, Kevin, of how many times he brings up Chibi Robo's untimely demise of turning into a platformer. I think we're at 3 episodes in a row, not including Quarantine Chronicles.
I believe so.
Yeah, so just keep that in the back of your mind. Angel, it's one of those, like, you know, if you get 10 stamps, you get a free not Chibi Robo you want. So say it 7 more times. Maybe I'll give you a copy of Ziplash.
I do own it already, but...
Well, you can have a second one. In that case, I'm not giving it to you. Never mind. And no, you're not getting my Chibi Robo amiibo.
Yeah, like I need another one.
Exactly. But, yeah, I guess Nintendo, they kind of brought it on themselves. But the point I was trying to get at, and maybe an example that hits a little closer home to Switch, is, you know, looking at how games evolve, is what's going on with Rocket League. Because it went through, I think, 3 different revenue models in the 5 years this existed. Like, first it was a paid game with some regular paid DLC. Then they introduced a season pass for new DLC, but kept the premium price. And now the devs at Psyonix are saying that it's going to be free to play starting this summer with a season pass. Like, literally, you can chart the evolution of industry.
Wait. I think you missed a revenue path. They were doing loot boxes too in there.
Oh, you're right. 4. Even right.
Yeah,
so
4.
More to my point, you can literally chart the evolution of industry business practices and turning a game from a one and done into a service just inside Rocket League in only 5 years flat. Like, each thing they added, you know, obviously extended the game that much more. And you know, it's kind of nice about free to play is it's going to gain even more features that are going to keep it alive beyond just lifting the paywall. It's going to have cross-platform progression. It's going to have I can't remember what else they're doing. There are a couple other things they're doing along cross-platform, but they're still iterating on it. And I don't know about you guys, but actually, what do you guys think of the switch over to free to play? Are you in favor of it? Like, we all play Rocket League. How you feel about it going free to play?
It doesn't matter. It's an old game.
Yeah, at this point, I feel like enough people own the game that they probably saw. Well, I mean, technically, this was all done because Epic bought Psyonix.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that kind of what happened to Team Fortress 2?
Not necessarily, because it was a paid game, and then Valve just decided to make it free to play. But
I guess to the average consumer, this is kind of what this looks like. It was a paid game, and then it just became paid. It became free to play.
I mean, I'm kind of excited that's going free to play because, like, I mean, not only like because the game, those of us who already bought it, we're getting all the DLC that's Rocket League branded for free. We're getting a special badge on our profiles, but also like it's kind of going to give a shot in the arm to the game because there'll be so many new players and there's going to be so many more matches, and like it's not going to necessarily have trouble matching with people. But at least when Angel and I play on like Wednesday nights with some folks, like we have definitely gone to go match someone new and gotten the same people again. So having a bigger player base is only going to help. Having it have cross-platform progression along with cross-platform play is only going to make it that much more accessible for people, along with the free-to-play. So like I'm kind of for it. I think it's pretty cool, but it does definitely, like, Rocket League is like the textbook example of how games have evolved, which is kind of funny because I remember when it first came out, it was like a PlayStation Plus exclusive or something. I didn't think 5 years later it would be its own esport, its own everything. But here we are.
So
what?
So it tickled your pickle?
I mean, I'm on board with them doing it.
I wonder what this is going to mean for cheating in the game.
Is there a cheating scene? Is there a situation?
Yeah, not that I've seen a lot of cheating going on Rocket League, and not that I've heard a lot of stories, but I know a lot of games when they go free to play, the cheaters pop up like crazy. I've read articles about Destiny 2. As soon as it became free to play, there's a lot more cheating going on. As soon as what's Valve's game?
Left 4 Dead?
CS:GO.
CS:GO.
When CS:GO went free to play, a lot more cheating happened. So I wonder how this can affect that.
I guess there's going to be more cheating, is what the data seems to suggest. But yeah, I wonder what that's going to do to legacy players. Because the other risk of going free to play is if there's an influx of new players, all the pro players are going to be like, I don't have any real competition because I'm getting matched all these noobs, and they might ease off for a while. So,
no, not necessarily. Considering that the ranks will always rank you. The ranks.
Oh, true. That's true.
Which I'm assuming those pro players will only be playing anyways, will get ranked with people around their same skill level set.
Right. I guess just the fact that they'll surpass me in 30 minutes is what makes me concerned. I play, but I'm not good. But yeah, that'd be interesting to see.
Angel can finally play it on the PC and see what I was talking about when I said that the input delay on the Switch was insane compared to the PCs.
I didn't even know it had an input delay on Switch.
When we went over to Angel's brother-in-law's house, I guess sister's house too, when we were playing on the Switch, it didn't feel natural to me.
Oh, interesting.
And then, and I guess we still haven't confirmed if it was the TV that added some sort of input delay, but man, it just felt off, noticeably off. So I wonder how playing on PC will be for Angel to see if he sees the differences.
I'm sort of hoping it's the Switch that's a problem, because then that gives me a good excuse for why I suck. Because I only play on Switch. In reality, it's probably not, but that's kind of what I'm hoping. I mean, it's kind of like... But then that leaves a whole other question of, does that mean anyone on Switch is always at a disadvantage? Because, Fortnite, that was a bad enough issue where they actually had to fork... It wasn't latency, it was frame rate, but they had to fork who the Switch players play against from the consoles to the mobile. So, I don't know if that is Epic, so I could see Rocket League, if Epic feels the same way, as they open the floodgates here, I could see it kind of happening there, too.
Yeah.
So, that'll be interesting to see. But, what's kind of, the last thought on, this game's never age thing is, we talked about all these, ones where it's about monetization, right? The strategy changing, or how they can get people to buy things is changing. But what's kind of crazy to me is that, regardless of how other games are doing it for paid purposes, it's had a ripple effect where so many other games now, people just expect games to have longer lifespans. In the Nintendo sphere, a game like Splatoon would have previously been a one-and-done release with all the content on a disc or on a cartridge, but instead it became this rollout of content over many months, followed by this nice continued support for, I think it was 18 months, with new Splatfests and in-game events, and then they said they were done with that, but now they're doubling back with that, and Nintendo's doing 3 more Splatfests between now and March 2021, the first of which is, I think, the chicken versus the egg Splatfest that they did before, but they're going to do it again on August 21st. But yeah, it's just like
participate.
I don't know. I mean, are we gonna do it as a team? Is our Splatoon team gonna do it? It's not ranked or anything. It's not a tournament.
I guess not enough is on the line. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where I stand on chicken versus the eggs. So there's also that. But and the thing is, like, but the obviously having these is nice in some capacity. But like looking back, like, so this is obviously a move that they did to kind of like make it have longevity in the same way that games that you pay for do. Do you think, as players of the game, like this sort of drip feed of modes and weapons and events, like, was it okay for Splatoon? Did it end up working out? Because I know when we were in the thick of it, we are kind of like, it feels kind of light on content. But like looking back now, would we have preferred it all at once, and then maybe just some in-game tournaments? Is it like, is this, because this is the cookie cutter for a lot of games now. I mean, even Animal Crossing's doing it a little with their summer updates. You know, they just added Dream Suites and fireworks shows and cloud saves. Last, like 3 weeks ago, they did swimming, so they're doing a drip feed as well. Like, if this is the future of gaming, are we cool with that? Even on stuff where you're buying it all up front and they're kind of like trickling it out ARMS or Splatoon style?
Would you say, I don't know, I mean, is that enough for you to get back into those games?
Well, it hasn't been for Animal Crossing.
Yikes. Yeah,
I haven't played Animal Crossing in a little while, honestly. But it's just one of those things, like it's great that none of them have microtransactions, it's great that it's all still free, but I'm just sitting here thinking, like some games I think I guess it does make more sense for. Like Animal Crossing, maybe it didn't get me back in, but it was good to know that, like, on some level we're all kind of in the same boat in terms of progress, and then at some level everyone gets introduced to new concepts, so it kind of keeps the evolution of this ecosystem of islands you can visit all sort of in lockstep. So there is something to be said for that. But I don't know, like, I feel like ARMS and Splatoon, when we were in the midst of it, we're like, oh, there's only a few maps, a few characters, and they did a good job, like, every 6 to 8 weeks or whatever. But looking back, like, I remember us saying at times it's going to be great for someone who buys the game at the end. And just thinking, like, is this going to become a thing where people, every single game is just going to be basically half-baked? Or every single game that has, like, a multiplayer element is going to be half-baked? Like,
to be fair, I don't know. I don't think Animal Crossing felt half-baked. There were some stuff that were definitely missing, but I never felt like, it doesn't feel like the complete package. It definitely felt like a full-fledged Animal Crossing.
Yeah, no, that was more of a comment towards ARMS and Splatoon. I agree about Animal Crossing. I think you get way more than $60 worth in the base game.
Yeah, even Splatoon 2, I feel like that one is debatable, but I feel like it leans more towards the... At least Splatoon 2, I felt, did a much better job of feeling like a complete game. But yeah, I don't know.
ARMS.
Yeah, ARMS, that one. Yeah, that one did.
Because if you look at, like, even how games are launched, I mean, we had, what's that new Rocket thing from EA that just came out? Rocket
Arena?
League?
Rocket Arena. Yeah, not Rocket League.
That game is having a tough time, man.
Yeah, and it's not the only one. I mean, Amazon put out a kind of squad-based year, and they had to roll it back to beta just because it didn't get enough attention. What was the name
of that? Oh, Crucible.
Crucible, yeah. And then, like, you know, Ubi just launched Hyper something.
Hyperscape.
Thank you. And, like, there's all these games that are all now doing the piecemeal, and they're all, of course, cribbing on the same gameplay mechanic of, you know, these kind of third person, like, they're all Fortniting essentially. They're not all third person per se, but they're all kind of going after that market. But they're all doing the same thing where it's like, let's just roll out bare bones and then we'll build on top of it. And I don't know if that's good for the industry to have every major multiplayer game do this now, because you have all these half-baked games. And if they don't get traction, do they just fizzle out? Do they go back into hiding like Amazon's did? Like, it's very weird. Like, it used to be when you got a game, you know, this was like the game. Now you don't really. Or like even Fortnite, it started as a totally different type of game, and then the Battle Royale mode took off, and they sunsetted the other mode. So
no, it's still around.
Aren't they, like, moving it behind, like, some sort of paywall or something now?
I mean, it's always been behind a paywall.
What are they doing? I read something that they're doing the other week. But maybe they're stopping updates for that mode or something. Mm-hmm. Either way, point is, like, it's weird that, like, the thing you get is not the thing that it ends up being more often than not now. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's a good thing. Like we were saying, I think Animal Crossing is good, but it's just kind of like, it's very foreign compared to what gaming was, you know, when we were younger. So that was my whole rant, really. It's just interesting times in gaming. And I think Pokken sparked all of this. But, yeah, it's just like kind of weird how you can't just you can't play a game in the same way you can watch a movie as much anymore. Now games are like TV shows they have to keep up with. But they're all competing with one another all at the same time, and you only have so many hours. So, and you pick your game, but like it's harder to like dabble in multiple things than it used to be, I feel like. Well, but maybe that's just me. Yeah. I don't know how you guys necessarily feel.
I feel the same.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of point that out since Nintendo is themselves doing it through like the 20 different game events they have this summer. And ultimately, like the nice thing for us that are used to our old ways is there's still, of course, the idea of a news cycle and hype, and that still exists, and it kind of nicely brings us to the next segment, which is just that there was actual real news. There was a news cycle. We did get some news, not from Nintendo, mind you, because that would be crazy, and why would Nintendo tell us anything? But they did host a Nintendo Direct about everyone else, or well, everyone else is way too generous. They hosted a Direct Mini, seemingly the first of multiple new partner showcases that told us about like 5 things, which is very small even by mini standards. There was Cadence of Hyrule, an older title that's now getting DLC, WWE 2K Battlegrounds, which was previously announced, Rogue Company, which is a free-to-play shooter, speaking of, or not free-to-play, sorry, but it's a squad-based service game from Hi-Res Studios. That launched day and date with the Direct Mini, and then two Shin Megami Tensei games, a remake of 3 and the first footage of 5. So, based on your rule, I'm going to make an assumption. I'm guessing Shin Megami Tensei caught your eye, Kevin.
Hey, yo. Yeah, it did.
So, what do you think
because
about
I never played. So, I guess I'll talk about the entire thing.
Yeah, go for it.
It's great that Shin Megami Tensei 3 is getting an HD remaster. I didn't play 3 when it was originally out on the PS2. It wasn't even called 3. It was called Shin Megami Tensei 3. No, it had no 3. It was just subtitled Nocturne.
Right.
Featuring Dante from the Devil May Cry series. No, on the PS2.
The DS got Shin Megami Tensei 4 and up, Angel.
The 3DS got Shin Megami Tensei
4. 4. Yeah, 3DS.
And a sequel, and like its own sequel called Apocalypse, which I never got around to playing. So that's cool. And then they finally showed off Shin Megami Tensei 5, which has been MIA since the original Switch
presentation.
Reveal.
From that January Switch presentation 2017 or whatever generic name they gave it.
Yeah, and that's also supposedly coming out next year, so I'm excited about that.
It does feel like they threw a bone. They're like, we're so sorry that 5 is taking so long, fans. So here's 3, but it's also coming out right around the time of 5. So just like, sorry? But
yeah, so 3 is very critically acclaimed.
Oh, yeah. No, I do have a question for you, though, because you are a resident Shin Megami and Persona expert. What is the difference? Besides one being a spin-off of the other. Like, what actually... So one's more of a traditional RPG, and one's... Like, where do they... What is the difference?
They're both sort of traditional RPGs with... I mean, Persona is a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei.
Right, and that's about as much as I knew.
In a way, you keep remembering his Persona thing.
Yeah.
From we were talking with Smash Brothers.
Oh, yeah. His Persona thing called a Persona. Yeah. Yeah. I admit I'm not well versed. That's why I'm asking the questions. The hard-hitting questions.
Yeah, Shin Megami Tensei, the Shin Megami Tensei games lean much, much darker than their Persona games. Their themes are definitely much heavier. They're more nihilistic in a sense, and usually they have more religious themes as well. So while Persona, a lot of there's like an internal war on whether Shin Megami Tensei or Persona is better. The Shin Megami Tensei people are like, oh, Persona is just like watered down kitty Shin Megami Tensei. But I mean, yeah, I guess that's all I can really say about it. Like, yeah, they're more nihilistic, they're more darker.
Interesting. That's funny because part of the reason I was asking is I don't know if you've noticed, but Atlas seems to be, from what I can see from the outside here, it seems to be sort of splitting the series between different platforms. Like Persona, that seems to be very heavily on the PlayStation side, which is kind of funny because it maybe is the darker of the two. And like they get the core games, they get the upgrades like 5 Royals back in March or whatever. At most, Nintendo's thrown like a spin-off here and there with the likes of, Persona 5 Scramble, which actually Koei Tecmo just confirmed in their financial report is going to be localized for the US. But they get that, or like the 3DS gets like Persona Q, which is its own spin-off series. But then if you look at Shin Megami Tensei, it's the exact opposite, where 5 is exclusive to Switch, 4 was exclusive to 3DS. They're sort of backporting the old ones like 3 to sort of catch the Nintendo side up. It's like Atlus is doing the Divide and Conquer strategy that I remember Square Enix used to do with Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy, where for quite a while Dragon Quest saw new entries only on Nintendo systems, the DS, the Wii. Meanwhile, at most Nintendo systems would get like Final Fantasy spin-offs or backports of older entries, while the new numbered games would be on PlayStation. That's loosened up a bit in recent years, but there seems to be this weird oddball like JRPG thing where you can't have multiple franchises of yours that on the same platform. They have to like conquer their own, and they'll like dabble in each other, but they're like the main lines seem isolated to different platforms, and I think Atlus is now doing that. That's kind of the pattern I've noticed. And
meanwhile, Microsoft doesn't get anything.
Exactly,
because Xbox never sells.
Exactly, yeah. In Japan, it's a joke essentially. The fact that Phantasy Star Online even exists on Xbox kind of blows my mind. Like they have 2 of them on Xbox.
Well, Microsoft is powering that game's North American release with their Azure Cloud.
Oh, I didn't know that. Maybe there's hope then, because
what brought it over.
In Japan, both those Phantasy Star games are coming to Switch as cloud-based. You stream them to your Switch. I wonder if Microsoft would be open. I'm guessing no, but I'm wondering if they'd be open to letting Sega do the cloud thing in the US with the one that they're powering and do it as kind of a plug for Microsoft services. In the same way that, we got like Ori and Cuphead and stuff. I'm guessing no.
Probably not going to happen.
But yeah, I can dream though. I mean, really, if Microsoft's going to throw us a bone, they should throw us the Gunk, or whatever that game's called, by Image and Form that they showed for Xbox Series X. It's like Luigi's Mansion meets Mario Sunshine meets like Annihilation, that one sci-fi movie by Alex Garland. Like it looks cool.
Alex Garland.
Yeah. I would be okay with that on Switch, but that's never going to happen. I know that. I don't even think the Switch could handle it. But yeah, so I guess that's Shin Megami Tensei. But Angel, was there anything of those 5 games that caught your eye?
Unfortunately, no. There was literally nothing. But I mean, I'm sure. I hope those people that it did target are very happy.
Yeah, like
I am.
That's what's so funny. Is like the Shin Megami fans are like all like, "Oh my god, that was the greatest," and then everyone else is like, "It was nothing." And I think frankly the only other mini news of note, pun not intended, maybe it was intended, it might have been a little intended, was Cadence of Hyrule's update. And for me, now this is a game I can never quite figure out the groove of. Like I remember when I talked about playing it way back when it first came out, I kept circling around the point that everything about the game is so good and well done, I just outright suck at it because I have no rhythm. Did either of you ever play Cadence or Crypt of the NecroDancer, which is the original version of the game?
I did. I played Cadence. I mean, not Cadence. Crypt of the NecroDancer.
And you have better rhythm than me, right? So you were actually able to like enjoy it, right?
It was fun.
Did you ever consider Cadence, or were you good with just the OG one, so to speek?
It's kind of funny because you'd think I'd be all over these rhythm games of sorts, but surprisingly, no. I was just kind of like, I'm good. I don't know why. I just didn't feel like motivated to play them through or get more into them for some reason.
It's not a regular rhythm game in the way that the others are. Like all the others are very like, if you look at like Rhythm Thief or Rhythm Heaven or Guitar Hero or Rock Band, like all those are very like you do a song and then you move on. It's a linear path
that you could basically memorize. This is it's like you're playing literally The Legend of Zelda,
but
NES.
To music.
And
that's what sucks about it, because I thought it was such a cool concept and there's so much fan service and everything, and then like I just don't have rhythm, so I can't get into it. And I think the worst part now is seeing that they're doing the season pass of 3 DLC packs for $15 or $6 individually, and all the new content just further proves the point that they're doing everything right with the game, which just makes my suckiness stick out to me even more, because like each DLC pack's got its own focus. The first one, it's already out, I think. It introduces 5 new playable characters, each with their own gameplay quirk. Like, Impa's playable for the first time. Shadow Link's playable. There's a new 21 floor dungeon where you fight Ganon at the end. Like, that's his big moment in the game finally. Then, like, DLC Pack 2 comes out. That's a music pack. It's going to be 39 new songs and remixes, plus the ability to actually change any song in the background of the game as you play. So you can actually pick what you want to hear instead of just playing whatever they tell you you're going to play. And, like, given how excellent the remixes were in the base game, you know, just imagine how great it's going to be when they increase the soundtrack by literally 60% more music. And then there's the third DLC pack, which actually comes out, I think, in tandem with the second one at the end of October, maybe? And that one, it's a whole new story. It's about Skull Kid, who's arguably one of the most underutilized and, in my opinion, maybe underappreciated characters in all of Zelda. I think Skull Kid and all that weird stuff in Majora's Mask is great. And they're going to do a whole thing about him, and it's going to have new songs, a new map, and, like, all this stuff. I'm just watching the mini presentation and then, like, reading the press release. I'm just like, why can't I have more rhythm? Because that is super cool looking stuff. So as it stands, like, I only have to kind of... Yeah, dude, it's torture. Listen, there's a lot of problems in the world, but nothing as bad as not having rhythm and looking at what they're doing at Cadence of Hyrule. Like, you have no idea. Like, you could argue that the Direct Mini was, you know...
poor Jason.
Too small, didn't have enough going on. What was that?
No, I said poor Jason, 99 problems, and rhythm
is one. Yes, yeah. Like, so, I mean, honestly, the other problem with the Direct Mini is it didn't really have anything else. Like, I understand, like, in more serious,
they should
like,
have
Cadence thing.
Just put out a press release? I mean, did Nintendo...
I think... So my guess is they like this. I would guess the partner showcase exists because Nintendo likely had marketing contracts with different third-party partners that needed to be fulfilled. They probably said, yeah, we'll put you in a direct, we'll showcase you in our presentations back before coronavirus. And now they're like, here you go. And that's probably why ultimately the whole presentation was basically the news you would see around Nintendo's own direct announcements, just without those first-party announcements. Which is fine. I think it's good that they're, you know, trying to throw a bone to these guys and still give them a video presentation versus coming up with some sort of press release or something. But what I'm confused by is why Nintendo, specifically Nintendo of America, only did the very bare minimum. I mean, the fact is, doing a presentation with 5 games total, 3 of which we already knew about, it's not really a good look. And it's perplexing because there's so much stuff they could have also shown. Like, they focused on, let's say, 2K's WWE Battlegrounds, right? They completely ignored that the company that is making that, 2K, is releasing 2 other games between now and Battlegrounds, PGA Tour 2K21 and NBA 2K21. So why not do another like 2K Heart Switch sizzle reel with a focus on sports and show all 3? Or, you know, they talked about Rogue Company being out the day of the Direct. Why not take a moment to also cover Crysis Remastered, which was coming out 3 days later at the time? The Switch version, unlike the other versions, was not delayed because... you know, the concerns people have about graphics don't really apply on the Switch. So I don't know why they just, like, ignored all that. And I think the most egregious ones, like, you could say, okay, maybe they didn't have marketing contracts with those guys or maybe whatever. But I think the most egregious ones, plural, were the games that got a feature in the Japanese Direct are coming to America and yet were left out of the North American Direct.
Yeah,
like the Japanese Direct.
So why not just show them here, make it a little longer?
Yeah, like Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered was in the Japanese Direct. It's out later this month now. Why not highlight it? That's a pretty big... like, there's a lot of nostalgia around that game among Nintendo fans. That seems like a no-brainer. Or how about, like, Sakuna of Rice and Ruin? A game that Nintendo previously covered back at E3 2019. It was in the Japanese Direct, where it got coverage. In North America, on the same day, Exceed announced that it's coming stateside in November. It's got a swanky deluxe edition, like an art book and soundtracks and whatever. And then a couple hours after the Direct Mini, Nintendo even tweeted the news about Sakuna coming west. So why not put it in the show? Why not, if nothing else, pad your show? It makes no sense to me. And they weren't the only ones. They weren't the only ones with that problem either. Because like Koei Tecmo, they had a game in the Japanese Direct. I forgot what it was, but they had a game in the Japanese Direct. I think it was a sequel to one that just came out on Switch in September last year. It's a super like JRPG anime style game. And their Twitter account here in the US, I think it was Atelier or one of those, Atelier 2 maybe.
No, that series. Atelier.
Yeah, however you say it.
Yeah, that series, Jesus Christ.
What's your concern with that? Why? Maybe this is why they didn't put it in the US one. What triggered that reaction?
Compete with Shin Megami, I guess.
That series has so many games. It's insane. Like, you thought Final Fantasy was huge. That series has been around since forever.
So then why not put it in the Direct? Like, literally, Koei Tecmo, in their American Twitter account, had to point to the Japanese Direct's timestamp and go, oh yeah, we announced this thing over there, but it's coming here. It's like, well, why did Nintendo not put it in? Or even, like, do a sizzle reel that had it.
If we're going by what you said, that maybe that this was a partnership thing, maybe they just never had this as part of the partnership.
Well, that's what I was thinking. But then why not, reach out? I mean, Nintendo knows every third-party game that comes to their platform. They approve them all. They lock check them all. Why not reach out to some guys to say, hey, we're doing a presentation. We're doing it because we have these deals with these other companies, but we have some bandwidth, we have some room, we want to showcase some games because we're really quiet. Give us your games. We'll pick yours, and yours. They just did it, and the Japanese did. That's why I don't get. And the European one for some of these, I think, did. So it's really strange that NOA is just like, nah, we're good. Like, I don't know.
Because this is Nintendo that we're talking about. I know. Nothing that they ever do makes sense.
I know. And what I'm really hoping is, like, they're saying this is going to be a new format. They're going to do more of these this year. So hopefully they flesh it out as they go, as they do more partner showcases. It's just so odd to me, maybe because Nintendo doesn't make sense, that the company that basically pioneered the digital showcase format for gaming is now struggling with it when everyone else has finally caught up to them. Like, everyone else is finally at the point where they're doing what Nintendo has been doing since 2012, and yet Nintendo's suddenly like, well, how do we do this? How does this work? How do we do hype? I don't get it. Like, what happened? It's very strange. That said, there is one other third-party announcement that is probably worth a mention. It's one that actually didn't happen with the Direct, but happened in conjunction with the Xbox Game Showcase, or the pre-show of the showcase, technically. And that's an entirely new platformer from Sonic creator Yuji Naka and the original designer of Sonic. I forgot to write down his name. Well, the original designer of Sonic. And it's called...
Man.
It's it's right here. Oshima. Naito Oshima. And it's called Balan Wonderworld.
Knights.
It looks like Knights. Yeah.
It basically is Knights.
Yeah. I mean, it is and it isn't. Yeah, because you're not flying. You're actually platforming. Like, I'm not really sure where to properly begin with it. Because, like, gameplay-wise, it seems to have some pretty cool ideas. Like, it looks like a relatively straightforward 3D platformer, but the hook is that you unlock and use 80 different costumes, each of which grants your character new abilities, like walking on air, or manipulating time, or ground pounding, or ice skating, or what have you. And you change these abilities on the fly as you go through all the 12 different worlds of the game. But what's kind of different about it is because this is being published by Square Enix, that means the production values are going to be through the roof, and the plot is very Square Enix-y, I'd say. Like, the concept is that whenever someone encounters a hardship in life, they end up in a musical theater called the Balan Theater, and there, a character with essentially a top hat for a head named Balan, he sort of serves as a maestro of sorts as you go through the game and help these people, and it's all inspired by musical theater, to the point that they even hired singers from London's West End to sing the songs in the game. But anyway, you go through these different worlds or musical numbers or whatever, and you're helping 12 different people overcome emotional struggles and negativity by, it looks like, restoring hearts to their something. I don't really know, but like the theme of each world, and presumably the bosses are all tied into whatever that particular negativity they have is. And it kind of, I mean, what did you guys watch the trailer? What did you think of it?
I mean, I watched the trailer. I mean, character design wise, I mean, things are very interesting, but it's really hard to say or see if this game will be fun.
Yeah,
it's just really hard to say.
It's weird. Kevin, did you see it at all?
Yeah, I got a huge Billy Hatcher vibes out of it.
Oh, I think I got a huge nope out of me.
I noped out so hard. Yeah, I kind of picked up on the Billy Hatcher thing too, both in character design a little, and if I remember correctly, Billy Hatcher was very much, you collect different eggs and they give you different abilities. It seems to just be doing costumes instead of eggs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and Billy Hatcher's fun. Like, it's a very underrated GameCube game. So that gives me a little hope. But yeah, the thing I got out of the trailer myself is it's very ambitious looking. Like Square Enix put out a video where they spent a good 5 minutes discussing just the visual style and how they needed to stand out from Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest and draw inspiration from both art styles and take the cool tones of this and the warm hues of that. And then there's the music, which is, they hired London West End, like I was saying, and the composer is like pointing out how he doesn't even know what exactly the music he is supposed to make is because Naka gave him too vague of a description. But he had fun. It should be good. You'll see. And like it all had this very like high budget vibe. But then they didn't really show a whole lot of gameplay. Like, from what I could tell, like, it's wearing its inspiration on its sleeve. We already mentioned Billy Hatcher Knights. I would say there's a little Mario Odyssey in there, too. Somewhat with the music focus, because, Odyssey's marketing was so heavily New Donk City and that jazz club. But somewhat just, like, the world layouts and stuff kind of gave me a bit of a Mario Odyssey vibe. But, yeah, it is kind of hard to tell, because they spent so long talking about the production values and nothing really about the gameplay, which on some level makes sense because I feel like platformers in general, usually it's the gameplay that comes first and the production's usually second. Like, there's very few super high production platformers these days. There's Crash, there's Mario, sort of Sonic. So I could see why they were like, this is how we're Square Enixifying a platformer. But yeah, I kind of wish we saw more gameplay. Like, I'd say I'm intrigued at this point. I like the concept. I see if the gameplay matches it.
Intrigued is good.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I thought it was worth a shout though, because like the pedigree involved, and the fact that it is essentially referencing games that have been on Nintendo systems. I mean, we got a Night sequel on Wii. I don't know if you remember that. So yeah, it's very much, it's kind of like that Jet Set Radio game that isn't, and it was announced like a day apart from that. So what I'm talking about.
Cyberpunk. That game looks dope.
Yeah.
It's something cyberpunk.
Yeah, it's like Bomb Squad Cyberpunk or something. Maybe not Bomb Squad, that's a little weird. But yeah, that looks cool. That one looks like a walking copyright like lawsuit. I don't know how. It's like, it's not even like ashamed to be basically the same thing. But I guess they probably scurried just far enough around it. But yeah, that's all the news that Nintendo and its partners wanted us to know. But of course, there has been a massive story circulating the web this past week that I'm sure Nintendo never wanted to happen, the so-called Gigaleak. The origins aren't exactly known. It seems to stem from clearly some sort of hack of Nintendo's internal servers, but it is a treasure trove of game source code, unused assets, marketing materials, all this stuff from the Super Nintendo and early N64 era. And I don't know, have you guys been following it at all? Like, do you have any highlights that you've seen of cool things that came out of it?
Mean,
like, how are you feeling
I've
about
just
it?
seen I haven't seen too much of it. I mean, I've just seen the highlights mainly. Who didn't see Slim Yoshi or Smoking Toad? But
actually, Smoking Toad, that's a deep cut of the leak, to be honest. That did not get the same rounds. Did you see?
Smoking Toad?
See?
So Smoking Toad isn't Origami King?
Sadly, no. That's considered a character trait add-on that they probably blocked. But yeah, that one's so weird because it's like, I don't even know what game that's supposed to be, but it's just like a building. It looks like an apartment building. Actually, it looks like Nintendo's headquarters building.
It looked like Super Nintendo Sim City.
Yeah, and then like they have like these little sprites of different characters. So there's Mario, who's shirtless. There's Peach and Bowser, who are sharing a balcony. There's Toad, who's smoking. And it's just very weird. Like, some of the stuff in the leak is weird. That one's weird. I think, like, one odd thing I really appreciate is that we're getting all these, like, high-res marketing materials for N64 era games, which I know sounds absolutely silly to care about, but when I was a kid, I spent more time than I care to admit saving, like, crappy low-res GIFs and JPEGs of character art from Nintendo's official sites. Like, I have a hard drive somewhere, external somewhere, that's just full of, like, 120 by 90 fuzzy GIF Marios and Kirby's and whatnot. And even though, like, I don't need this art now, I don't know why I did then, just knowing that there's high-res versions of, like, the crisp Mario 64 cartridge art or the box art or even the templates for the overlays of those, like, childhood me was very happy to see that. But in terms of, like, actual game content, yeah, it's, so neither of you have been following it too much, or, well, Kevin, have you followed it at all? Angel said not too much, but
I've followed some of it.
Anything cool jump out at you?
No, not really. I think it is cool that Nintendo has been saving these assets for so long.
Yeah.
And like how high quality they are.
Yeah. It's
that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's
Why were they saving them though? I wonder what they were.
Well, they never. Well, Nintendo never gives up on an idea, so they probably just kept these around for archival purposes. If they want to go back and revisit anything, because there's some like cool stuff in there. I mean, some of it maybe you don't necessarily need. Like, do we need the beta sprites from Pokemon Diamond and Pearl? I don't know. Or like the many designs of Yoshi. I think once they got past weird thin lizard man, they probably didn't need to do much with that. But, you know, on the gameplay side, it's cool that, like, there was a demo of Yoshi's Island where the mechanic for Baby Mario falling off Yoshi is totally different. It's, like, he just crawls around and doesn't cry, and then you have these little clocks shedding off of Yoshi instead, where, you know, in the final game, obviously, he's in a bubble and he's screaming at you and there's a time limit. So it's just interesting to, like, see the different iterations. Of course, there's some stuff in there that we already knew about in some form. Like, Mario 64, that and Luigi were trending because when people found Luigi's assets in the game's source code, they pieced them back together, and, you know, the internet freaked out because that old rumor of L is real 2047 was essentially proven based on this leak. But if you actually go read old Iwata Asks interview from back in the day, Miyamoto discussed at one point that Luigi was in fact in the game. Like, this is a known thing. He was going to be in multiplayer. They couldn't figure out how to do the camera to stretch to fit both him and Mario in frame, so they dropped him. So, like, that one wasn't a surprise, but it's still really cool to see, okay, here's Luigi in his final form inside Mario 64. But yeah, I think for me, the whole thing, it's like how, like, art historians can, like, x-ray a world-famous painting and see past iterations of the art underneath the layers of paint. Like, it just gives, like, this really cool look at how the games were made, how the devs got to what we all know and love so much. And from a sort of, like, game history and preservation perspective, it's really, like, kind of incredible to suddenly have all this. Like, especially when you consider games we never knew existed that apparently were in the works at one point. Like, there's a game that's been kind of dubbed Super Donkey, which seems to be a mix of, like, Rayman with, like, a Yoshi's Island aesthetic. Or there's a prototype I saw floating around of a hockey-based NES RPG. So, like, that's stuff we never knew about. Or, like, even Star Fox 2. Like, we did eventually get it. But there's history in the assets in the leak that showed that at one point Star Fox was going to have human characters. There's a human woman in Star Fox 2 at one point. You know, and they obviously didn't continue that route. And there's weird things, like just pieces of history. Like, there's a 3D polygonal render of what looks to be the very first pass at doing a 3D Link. I mean, granted, it's a couple triangles from, like, 1994 that are just the right colors to be his hat and his sword. But still, it's, like, the very first polygonal render Nintendo made, and it's just in there. It's all really fascinating. But the problem is, of course, it wasn't obtained legally. It wasn't obtained properly. This is all unauthorized. It's very much illegal. I can't even imagine the nightmares it's causing for, like, Nintendo devs and the company itself. Like, first off, it's not like only cool assets leaked. There's private communications, there's personal emails, all sorts of stuff in there. And some of those could probably hurt people's future job prospects. Like, there's inappropriate jokes and comments in the source code. There's, you know, things that were tried and failed. There were tools that didn't work, and other stuff could lead to fans even second-guessing gameplay decisions that did work out and did get turned into what we now play. You know, they can go in and essentially criticize devs for making decisions they made, which not only hurts the devs' own confidence in their own decisions and can potentially lead to self-doubt for future decision-making, but, like, the stress of having fans now bombard you on Twitter, like, hey, why'd you do this instead of this? Why'd you do this instead of that? That was a bad choice. You should have done the other thing. Like, this is a very real concern that Dylan Cuthbert, who is head of Q Games now, but was the lead programmer on Star Fox 1 and 2, you know, way back in the day, he already on Twitter has expressed that this is happening and it's really frustrating. And to the point before of, you know, what's Nintendo doing with all this stuff, there are maybe ideas in there that Nintendo wanted to keep close to their chest to revisit later. Like, they never give up on an idea. The e-reader became Amiibo. The Game Boy GameCube became DS and Wii U. Like, what, you know, the connectivity. Now these ideas, well, granted not huge ones, they're kind of open season. Like, they're out there. Competitors can do stuff with it. They're not trade secrets anymore. They're around. So it's a real, like, I'm very torn on how I feel about the leak, as much as I love what's in it. Like, I mean, generally speaking, like, and especially you, I'd imagine, because you do a lot of stuff with animation and you, like, the art world, like, how sucky is this from the perspective of a creator, would you say?
I mean, it could go both ways. I mean, it does seem like in the animation and just art world in general, people are very sensitive about their art, like, extremely sensitive. So something like this coming out, and then if they just so happen to be looking at comments and a lot of them are saying, like, oh man, like this Yoshi's way better. Like I can't believe we ended up with this other one. Then that could suck. On the other hand, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to say just because it's like such a long time ago that, you know, like this thing happened.
Right.
But it's interesting. I mean, it definitely feels like it does more harm than good from the art perspective point of view. Because I mean, yeah, Nintendo's been saving these, but we don't really know the exact reason why. For all we know, it could have just been like a lot of these just weren't ready to be shown or just weren't like right for other reasons. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and the moral ambiguity of it too is just kind of weird because it's like you're sort of like invading their privacy, but sort of not. Like, I mean,
if they really want to see this, they would have shown it to us already. I mean, we just don't know.
Right, and that's kind of thing is like, as someone who does love to follow, or I guess you could even say study in my case, Nintendo history. Like, I'm really torn about this because, like, on the one hand, it is nice to know that Nintendo keeps such thorough records. It means that they can keep doing stuff like those official art books, of which I own, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, something like that. And to be fair, like a good number of the assets get in those books. But on the other hand, to your point about like they maybe didn't want to show us, it's all very sanitized. You know what I mean? Like those books don't show the level of iterative processes. They may not show the equivalent of how we see now that Mario World, at one point Mario's going to have wings instead of a cape. You know, something that was real and in the Gigaleak. We only see a concept art stage of something. So we'll see a sketch of what they're going to do with Mario Odyssey. But they're not going to show us the equivalent of Link sprites having blood on them, which is something else that leaked, I mean. Or, you know, the 5 stages of the Yoshi design. They'll be like, this is Yoshi, this is the official look. We'll show you some, like, variants of that look, but we're not going to show you Crazy Lizard Man. So, this does give us a peek behind that, but to keep, like, the book analogy going, I'd say, like, the leak more closely is the equivalent of those unofficial, like, Nintendo history books. The kind of, like, you know, they tell it more how it was, warts and all, than if Nintendo itself published its own history. They're unsanctioned interviews, they're research, they're legal documents obtained, that sort of thing. And this kind of feels like that, where in both cases it's really a good peek behind like how Nintendo came to be and what they do. And there's some really great books that do this. Like there's one excellent one called Game Over: How Nintendo Conquered the World. It's by a guy named David Sheff. And I read this way back in the early 2000s. I want to say it's like 2001 or something. I was like 12 or 13. And it covered the rise of Nintendo in arcades and the NES and the Super Nintendo and a bit of the N64. And it talked a lot about the decision makers at the time and, you know, interviewed them. Like it talked to people from early days of NOA. And there's a similar book about the Wii era called Nintendo Magic by a guy named Osamu. I've got to try to say his last name. Inoue. Inoue. Angel. Japanese. Inoue.
That sounds right. Inoue.
Well, that's the spelling. Inoue. Osamu Inoue. Okay.
Pronounce it like you would in Spanish.
That doesn't help me because I don't know Spanish either. Yeah. But like that's a book that similarly covered like the Wii and how it overcame competition from Sony and Microsoft and talked to people. And then there's other books like Console Wars about the Nintendo Sega rivalry in the 90s, which is now actually being adapted to be a CBS All Access TV show. So there's already these sort of tellings of Nintendo's history, and this is kind of like the visual version of that. And the fact that these all exist and it's possible, that's why I'm so excited about the announcement the other day that Viz Media is actually going to translate and localize the Iwata songbook from Japan under the new name of Ask Iwata. I tweeted when it was announced that, but I'm dead serious about this. I plan to read that book in like a single sitting in one go, because that's like the only other time I've done that is Harry Potter.
It's a very nice looking book for sure.
Yeah, and it's just really cool because it's straight from his mouth. It's design philosophies that shaped a lot of the crucial era of Nintendo. There's interviews with Miyamoto. There's interviews with Earthbound's creator, who's a good friend of Iwata. And it's about working with him, the anecdotes about his development background, kind of a peek behind the curtain that isn't necessarily like sanitized Nintendo's view, but still it's what people are comfortable saying. Which all these books, the through line is they talk to people, they got documents and everything, but it was all like above board. It was what they were comfortable saying and expressing and sharing. And I think that's where I draw the line with the leaks and how comfortable I am with them as a person that like is on, consuming them, is if the developers themselves put out this stuff, like how artists will sometimes show concept art for abandoned projects, that's one thing. If someone wants to go around and get the leaks sanctioned before releasing them, that's another thing. Sure, why not? That's never going to happen, but bear with me here. Where it gets messy is nobody involved in making those things that got leaked wanted them out there. No, it just like happened. Like nobody like sat down with someone and said, "Sure, put it in a book," or said, "Sure, make it a CBS show," or whatever. Or yeah, throw me in the Iwata biography. It just happened, and I think that's what makes it so much more awkward. Even though ultimately it is just the visual version of those unofficial history of Nintendo books that are so good. So it's a weird situation, and I don't know. Like, what sucks about it is that there's no way to really tell what the blowback will be. Like, do you guys have any? What do you anticipate happening? How do you think Nintendo's gonna respond, if at all, at this point?
With a bunch of lawsuits.
Wouldn't they have already?
Well, that's what's interesting is,
or they can't do anything until it's actually being sold. I mean, I feel like if it was going to be taken down, it would have already.
They could send cease and desist, which apparently they haven't done yet, which is interesting. But I imagine.
I mean, for all we know, maybe they got permission. I mean, you said Viz is publishing this.
No, not the Iwata book. The leaks.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think even then. If Nintendo hasn't already, pretty much what I already said. I think if they haven't already done so already, then they might just leave it as is. Maybe if new ones pop up, maybe they might stop those. But I think
it is hard to put the genie back in the bottle. Yeah, my gut tells me. Or go ahead.
It'd be nice if they double down and just be like, "Hey, you saw these? Here's some other ones." But
because my gut tells me that what Nintendo's going to do is clamp down, and in their mind, rightfully so, because they had their privacy invaded essentially. So it would make sense from their perspective to put these assets on a tire leash. Maybe they don't even store them long term at all, which sucks because from a preservation perspective, it's going to be harder to trace the history of major milestone games, ones that define gaming, decades from now. If Nintendo's just like, you know what, let's just delete things when we don't need them anymore. And you could argue in some ways that Nintendo brought this on themselves, because if they weren't so secretive in the first place, and maybe were a bit more open about sharing some of the behind the scenes stuff, these wouldn't have spread like wildfire in the same way.
Let's not go that
route.
No.
What I was gonna say, hold on. What I'm gonna say is, I don't think they could go full on. Here's every iteration of everything, but their art books could, if they wanted to, include the different forms of Yoshi. And then when this leaks with prototypes of Yoshi, it wouldn't be trending on every single platform. It's not their fault this happened. They have all the rights to be as it says they are. Or, as secretive as they are. I'm just saying, they could have, if they tipped their hand on one or two little things that don't affect them, this would have blown over a lot smoother than it did, probably. But if I were Nintendo and my, secrecy was, this did happen, I would absolutely recoil. I wouldn't, they have all the right to it. It's their property. My twisted, unrealistic hope is what Angel said, which is that if Nintendo sees how much people are into these leaks, maybe they do open up a bit more. Maybe they do start showing.
It.
That's what I'm getting at. Maybe they do show more behind the scenes stuff, a la Iwata asks. Maybe they do agree to do more in-depth art books and making up books. And maybe they do show the iterations of Yoshi and things, because those are the things that people latch onto. And Nintendo has in the past, like I said, they did openly admit Luigi was in Mario 64 at one point. So they could put that out there in some ways and actually make money off it, and then not have the crazy trade secret nightmare when the other stuff leaks, because it wouldn't get nearly the same attention. And they could maybe, what would be really cool is if maybe they at some point do a documentary about a game's development. Like Jeff Keighley does these with those Final Hours videos and articles he puts together. Because we're already nitpicking everything Nintendo does, so why not give us a peek into why they do what they do in a way that isn't necessarily going to blow up in their face. There are opportunities. There are channels they can go through if they want to open up, and I'm hoping them seeing how many people are interested might encourage them to do so. But in my heart, I know they're going to recoil and lock down even tighter and get more secretive. So, but I guess that's kind of all I had to say about the leaks. I think it's a good question to end on, actually, is, we spent the last hour and 53 minutes nitpicking Nintendo, and we're going to keep doing it next episode with whatever they're willing to give us, be it announcements, games, who knows. But wouldn't it be nice if they shared a little along the way, actually kind of brought back Iwata Asp in a more dramatic, bigger fashion, where they are addressing the fact that there's this huge desire to learn how they do things? Because even Disney has documentaries about their animation and stuff. It's doable. It's just, will they? So
they won't.
They won't. I know, but I want them to. So yeah,
the best thing I could ever see them doing is just like maybe recording the process of them making games, and then maybe like, and this is like being like generous, like maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years after the game comes out, then releasing that one.
Yeah.
That way you see like, oh, this is the making of, like maybe right now they probably release like the making of Mario Galaxy.
And see, that'd be cool.
It's already super outdated. And that would be cool, but that's like the only way I see them doing anything.
Yeah,
like
there's no way they're going to. Yeah. But yeah, I think
and even then, like, I'm sure there's stuff in there that they still don't want us to see.
Of course, and they still, lock that down. But if they're like, yeah, so Yoshi went through some design changes. Here's what they looked like in a documentary. When the email dump comes out a year later that has those Yoshi design trends or changes, not as many people are going to necessarily download it and dig through everything and find the bad content in there, the stuff Nintendo actually want to hide, because the lead is already out there on Nintendo's own terms. So I don't know, just food for thought, I guess. But yeah, we whatever happens with Nintendo going forward, I guess we'll cover. Is there anything else you guys want to cover this episode before we wrap it up? Any more nitpicks? It's been a big episode of nitpicks.
The only thing on my head right now is that nitpick sounds like the name of a character in something. I kind of like that for a name, nitpick.
It does, actually. Sounds like the name of a mouse in an animated movie.
I could see that.
And he's a really good locksmith, and he helps them get into rooms they can't get in. Now, you think
it also
they
sounds
just
like
go
the
through
base form.
It's got a nice crunch to it.
What?
Like nitpick, it's got a nice crunch to it.
It does. It really does. Yeah.
It also does kind of sound like. It also kind of sounds like the base form of a Pokemon or something.
Yeah. It evolves into, what would be the evolution of nitpick?
Oh.
I mean, what do you do after nitpick? I mean, I thought nitpicking
Complain.
is usually the most extreme version.
Yeah, well, nitpick...
I guess it just gets broader and broader.
It would start like at pickets and then slowly evolve into nitpick.
Before its final form, Twitter mob.
Okay, well, there goes that joke.
Aw.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was good while it lasted.
Sure was. I'm just going to wrap it then before I make it worse. So,
what type would nitpick be?
Dark.
Electric? Dark? Oh, yeah, dark.
Oh,
Dark
electric dark. It sounds kind of cool. There aren't that many.
Has there ever been an electric dark Pokemon?
Not off the top of my head. I think there is a new one, or it's one of like the few typings that don't exist.
Nitpick. Yeah. I like it.
Cool.
Would that be Gen 8? 7? What gen are we on?
Gen 9.
Gen 9.
9. So,
if you send it to Nintendo, it could get leaked in about 15 years. So, just wait. 15 years from now, people will be like, why didn't they do that? Could happen. But yeah, our next episode is well before that. Our next episode is going to be in 2 weeks on August 16th. I don't know what we're going to talk about. We'll see. It's a mystery to everybody. But yeah,
I don't even know we were going to have anything to talk about this week, but somehow things barely happened.
Enough happened. We had a lot of games, actually. But yeah,
we've had a lot
fill in 2 hours as usual.
Yeah, exactly. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
That tends to happen. And anytime it feels like we have like a low news week, we still manage to always fill it up.
That's the thing about Nintendo is there's always so much going on because there's so many games.
We literally have nothing now, though.
Well,
what can you think about that we can talk about right now, just off the top of your head?
If anyone buys any Lego Mario sets, Killer Queen DLC. I stole his answer.
All right, a full 2 hours on Killer Queen DLC.
We'll really milk it. So whoever wants to hear Killer Queen DLC for a full 2 hours, August 16th is how you can catch it. You can follow us on Twitter. Make sure you don't miss it at Ram Nintendo. You can subscribe to us on all the podcast apps: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, Stitcher. We're also on YouTube. RamNintendo.com is our channel. And it's also good to follow those so you don't miss our next Quarantine Chronicles, which is our sub-show on the off weeks, where we also, who knows what we'll talk about, but it's a fun adventure to figure it out along the way. So, yeah, you can catch all that. You can follow us individually on Twitter. I'm JSR7. Angel's Wero, WERO_O. Kevin is KVN Gomi. Kevin, I guess, final word?
Nitpick for Gen 9, baby.